Carving demonstration. Permanent maxillary right first molar. For carving the 3 times the natural size, a 9-inch wax block is used. Measure 9 cm from the end of the block using a metal scale and mark on the wax block with a carver. Then draw lines parallel to the edge of the block on all the 4 surfaces exactly at the same measurement. This 9 cm wax block is used for carving this tooth. From one end of the wax block, measure 23 mm using the metal scale and mark it using the wax carver. And draw lines parallel to the edge of the block on all the 4 surfaces exactly at the same measurement. This line corresponds to the cervical line of the tooth. The 23 mm part of the wax block is used for carving the crown and the remaining part is used for carving the root. After demarcating the crown and the root, the individual surfaces are labelled on the root part of the wax block. This is the buccal view, mesial view, palatal view and the distal view. For carving the occlusal surface, draw the rhomboid occlusal outline on the occlusal part of the wax block. When drawing the occlusal outline, it should be in such a way that the mesiopalatal and the distobuccal edge should be of obtuse angle and the mesiobuccal and the distopalatal edge should be of acute angle. And also, the crown should be broad buccopalatally and narrow mesiodistally. Next, the occlusal outline or the shape is carved by removing the wax from the sides exactly up to the marked level. This shape should extend from the occlusal surface up to the cervical area. This shows the carved rhomboid occlusal outline. To carve the cusp and the grooves, the occlusal outline is drawn on the occlusal surface. This is the occlusal aspect showing the oblique ridge, cuspal and the groove outlines. First, the mesiopalatal cusp is carved by removing the wax from the mesiopalatal edge towards the occlusal surface up to the center in a diagonal manner to a depth of about 2 mm. Then, the distobuccal cusp is carved in a similar way. Both the cusps should join in the center diagonally to form the oblique ridge. Similarly, carve the mesiobuccal and the distopalatal cusps. This is the occlusal aspect showing the carved mesiobuccal, distobuccal, mesiopalatal and the distopalatal cusp along with the oblique ridge. The triangular fossa is carved by removing the excess wax in the triangular fossa area. It should be removed in such a way so that the marginal ridges are made prominent. Now, define or deepen the buccal and the palatal grooves on the occlusal aspect. This shows the carved occlusal aspect with the buccal cusps, palatal cusps, oblique ridge, triangular foci, developmental grooves and the marginal ridges. Now, the occlusal convergence is given by rounding the occlusal surfaces on all the sides. This shows the occlusal convergence in the occlusal aspect. Then extend the buccal groove onto the buccal surface up to the occlusal third, thereby dividing the buccal cusps. The palatal groove is also extended onto the palatal surface up to the occlusal third, thereby dividing the palatal cusps. This shows the carved occlusal aspect. Now, draw the mesiobuccal, distobuccal and the palatal root outlines on the buccal, mesial, palatal and the distal aspect of the root part. This shows the root outlines on the buccal aspect, mesial aspect, palatal aspect and the distal aspect. Next, the trifurcation is carved by removing the wax from the furcation area near the apical third from the buccal, mesial and the distal aspects. This shows the trifurcation near the apical third of the roots. Then, by following the mesiobuccal, distobuccal and the palatal root outlines, the roots are carved. This shows the carved mesiobuccal, distobuccal and the palatal roots. Lastly, define the furcation area of the buccal and the palatal roots. This shows the carved buccal and the palatal roots. Next, the cervical line is drawn on the buccal, distal, palatal and the mesial aspect. This is how the cervical line should be drawn on all the aspects of the carved tooth. Then, the cervical constriction is carved by slowly removing the wax from the crown towards the marked cervical line. This is done on all the surfaces of the carved tooth. This is the buccal, mesial, palatal and distal aspects showing the partly carved cervical constriction. Next, the cervical constriction is carved by slowly removing the wax from the root towards the marked cervical line. This is also done on all the surfaces of the carved tooth. This is the buccal, mesial, palatal and distal aspect showing the carved cervical constriction. After carving this cervical constriction, the root part should be smoothened to remove any excess elevations. polishing is done using the rough polishing cloth by rubbing gently on all the surfaces of the carved tooth. Then, the yellow polishing cloth is used for polishing by rubbing gently on all the surfaces of the carved tooth. While using the polishing cloth, forceful rubbing should be avoided to prevent any changes in the contours of the carved tooth. Final polishing is done using either a cotton or a tissue paper dipped in soap water. After polishing in soap water, the carved tooth is dried using a tissue paper. This is the final buccal aspect, mesial aspect, palatal aspect, distal aspect and occlusal aspect of the permanent maxillary right first molar. This shows the different stages of tooth carving up to the completed tooth.